Our first movie tells the story of a friendship behind prison walls that spans more than 20 years.
That's a great intro for the podcast. Go from there.
Welcome to episode 5 of Middlebrow Madness. I want to fucking break my own arms off. My name is Derek Gade.
And I'm Michelle Arf. I'm going to save the joke I did this episode for next episode. Because this is our second time recording this episode because Derek doesn't like recording episodes very much.
I suck. And I deserve the guillotine.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, man. God damn it, Michelle. We are already doing this podcast for 4 years, and we can't start doing shit twice because I don't press record.
Well, if we didn't do it twice, we wouldn't do it at all. So, this week, we have some matchups for everybody. We have some silent films. We have some Indian films. We have perhaps the greatest noir of all time. And we don't have the surprise of last episode anymore because we're recording this immediately afterwards. And we won't have Derek's reaction to something I'm going to say later on. But...
I mean, I could still... those feelings are still genuine.
Okay, you can bring them up. You can be method for this one.
Oh, God. All right, so this is what the fuck are we doing? Okay.
This is a podcast where we go through the IMDb Top 250. I'm taking over Derek in his distress. And we're taking a look at the IMDb Top 250 films of all time and deciding which one's the best. You know, some of the movies are good, some movies are bad. That's how movies work sometimes. You got to know when to hold them, got to know when to fold them, got to know when to watch Three Idiots. Derek, do you want to tell people what our matchups were for this episode?
So here are 2 matchups for today. Three Idiots versus Sherlock Jr. and Modern Times versus the Maltese Falcon. So this is the point in the episode where we would engage in patter about these movies, which would feel very ungenuine coming from me at this point. So let's get right into our first matchup.
Yeah, sure.
So we have Three Idiots, released in 2009. Number 91 in the IMDb Top 250, which is pretty high for a movie I didn't know existed before we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Directed by Rajkumar Hirani and winner of the National Film Award for... this is a good-ass category. For Best Popular Film Providing Wholesome Entertainment.
Sure is.
Very wholesome. We'll get to why that is funny in a second. Movie stars Amir Khan, R. Madhavan, Sharman Joshi, and Kareena Kapoor. And a pretty big hit, making, if my calculations are correct, to something to the tune of... you right? Oh, yeah. In the neighborhood of $70 million American.
$90 million American, I have.
$90 million American. So, yeah.
Certified smash. Blockbuster.
A blockbuster, would be fair to say.
At the time, it was the highest grossing Indian film ever.
That's not nothing.
Not nothing at all. And let's see. I'm looking at the list of highest grossing Indian films of all time. And there's been a lot since then. Holy crap. It's not even like... it's number 12 now.
I mean, that's still pretty significant.
Pretty good, yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't directed the 12th highest grossing movie in Indian history, so...
That's the favorite going into this, and the underdog, as it were, is Sherlock Jr., directed by Buster Keaton, at the 166th seed. It's in the National Film Registry for what that's worth, and it stars director Buster Keaton, Catherine Maguire, and Ward Crane as the Sheik. And I think Sheik may have had a different meaning in the 20s than it does now.
Sure did. This guy's just a regular thief.
That guy just sucks.
He's just a piece of shit. But you know who isn't a piece of shit? Everyone in Three Idiots except for the guy who farts. So, Three Idiots is a 3-hour-long coming-of-age comedy, kind of like just a frat comedy that also happens to be about how stress in Indian higher education leads to an incredibly high rate of suicide.
Yeah, it's like...
If that sounds odd coming from me, it's even odder seeing it in the film.
Yeah, I was kind of taken aback. Like, I still, at this point, can't really make heads or tails about it. But yeah, it's the shell of an 80s, like an 80s frat comedy with, like, jokes about piss and farts, and, you know, there's
a lot
like,
of jokes about
underwear.
piss. Now that I think about it, there's more than even your average comedy's jokes about piss.
Yeah, I mean, there's like one piss joke that I will get to in a second that I wish I had written. But there's a lot of jokes about piss.
And I do want to say there's one piss joke that there's like a 2.5 hour gap between when it happens and when it's called back to, which is just, that's a strange sentence to even say.
But, and yeah, there's because this is my first do-si-do with like Bollywood, like a proper Bollywood musical.
Me as well.
And this movie in the first 15 minutes transitions from big happy musical number about believe in yourself and everything will be okay, all is well, literally all is well, right into a fucking suicide. Like, and not just, it's implied that someone killed themselves.
Graphic.
Like, there's a shot of someone's hanging body, and then they rack focus, and you can see the words, I quit, smeared in blood, or what I think is blood, on the wall in the far end of the room. And that is a left turn that I had a hard time wrapping my head around, Michelle.
That's followed by the main character, whose name is Rancho, which we didn't even talk about why that tickled us so in the last episode. So let's just say, in the My Brother and Me TV show, they are trying to solve someone's problem of getting their wife to accept a tarantula into their household. So their fun name for tarantulas is Ranchos. And they had no way of knowing that. Yeah, they would have no... I'm assuming that the brothers have not seen Three Idiots, but... They should. Because it's a weird movie. Because I wanted to say, like, immediately after that suicide, there's a funeral we see where it's just this heavy downpour. And during that funeral, Rancho accuses the director of the school of murder.
Yeah, just straight up, and not just like implying it. Straight up says, like, that's his mic drop. It's like, it wasn't a suicide, it was murder.
Because of like how he treats his students, because of the level of pressure he puts on them, that he's essentially blaming him, which isn't altogether inaccurate, I would say, given the rest of the movie.
But here's the thing: this Dean character is like a Dean character in a fart comedy with like goofy hair and a really sort of comic effect lisp that he keeps using. And
he wears his pants super high, and Rancho like dresses up as him later and like makes fun of him.
Yeah, this is a dude who's walking around with Albert Einstein hair and talks like Sylvester the Cat, who gets accused of murder in the first 20 minutes.
And whose background is that his son committed suicide because of the pressure that he was putting on him.
I forgot about that too. Yeah. What the fuck is this movie, Michelle?
There's some wild stuff that happens in this movie. It does such tonal whiplash not constantly, but like regularly. It's never as serious as that first cut to the suicide, but it is pretty weird later on. Like there's also there's an attempted suicide later on. There's an implication of another attempted suicide. There's,
Michelle, I just realized.
What?
They find out that he killed himself with his own drone that he was working on.
Yep. Did you not?
They were gonna present to him as a gift. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's really fucking dark.
Oh my god. But this movie has joyous musical numbers and fart gags, and the joke that I wish I had written goes something like this. One of our protagonists gets soused, and they go to the dean's house and they piss in his mailbox and they call it P-mail, and that's hilarious. But this movie has a body count and a piss joke that I wish I had written, which is wild.
And it also takes place in two different eras. There's like a modern story and like here's 10 years ago and there's a mystery involved. There's like a central mystery of where did Rancho go after he graduated. And I knew pretty early on where it was going with that.
Yeah.
As soon as the fart guy, as soon as he talks about a certain name, you're like, oh, that's who that is. I got it. But that doesn't really take away from the fun of getting there. And the shocking thing I said to Derek the first time we recorded this was that I loved this movie. I think
it's still so weird to hear.
It is. And it's weird for me to say because this is a movie I went in expecting to not like. It's not my kind of movie at all. I don't like coming of age movies. I don't like fucking 3-hour uplifting movies about how good life is. I don't like musicals very much. I don't like frat comedies. but this movie just enveloped me and was like so happy and so fun and so like joyful that not only did I really like it, I loved it. I loved the characters. I loved all the actors. Like Amir Khan as Rancho is so charismatic. Kareena Kapoor, as we discussed previously, is gorgeous. She's also super charismatic as well. She's a great foil to him. And there's a part later on where she gets to do some great comedic acting when she's drunk herself. And then and
in a completely different register as the other characters who get drunk too.
Definitely. R. Madhavan and Sharman Joshi are also wonderful in their respective roles. Raju especially we discussed previously, this movie's a lot like Ferris Bueller, and he's kind of the Cameron character, but I think I like it even more than Cameron. I just loved this movie. It won me over in a way that I was not expecting at all going in.
Cameron didn't spend half an hour in a body cast and have a musical number sung about him after he tried to commit suicide.
And you see, this crazy thing. You see his like body on the ground after he jumps out of a window, and like all of his like limbs are broken.
Yes, it's fucked up.
And this is the same, like literally, like just a little bit later, like there's just more jokes. There's just more goofy fucking jokes that like essentially don't have any ramifications on anything. Yeah, it's such a strange mix of tones.
It's kind of wild,
but it worked for me.
We talked not at all about the fact that Pia's sister gives birth, and this is like 25 minutes of the movie.
And they have to create like a vacuum seal to pull the baby out of her in the middle of a rainstorm where the power's been shut down.
Oh, I just remembered that there's another gag that I really, really like that made me laugh out loud. At the beginning of the All Is Well musical number, it's like 2 seconds, they cut to some dudes playing ping pong, and a guy sends the ping pong ball over the net, and as the ball lands, the ping pong table splits in half.
Yes.
It's super cartoony, it's hilarious. And what the fuck
is
this
movie?
There's
like slide whistles in this movie. It's weird. It's wild to say that there's slide whistle sound effects in the same movie as there's multiple graphic suicides and suicide attempts.
We've gone over limit for this.
No,
this
we still have a minute and 33 seconds.
Oh shit! Really? Okay. It's musical numbers were good.
And
cast
this
was
is our
good.
second time talking about it, so there's a lot to say about this movie.
Yeah. Kind of heavy-handed thematically.
Certainly.
Kind of gets didactic a little bit. But has its heart in the right. I don't know. I still don't know. This is the second time I've talked about this movie, Michelle. I still can't I have no idea how I feel about this movie.
You know what movie I do know how you feel about, though?
What's that?
I know how you feel about Sherlock Jr.
Oh,
and
tell me about it.
I think you like that movie quite a bit, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct in assuming that because this is Sherlock Jr. Came out during that God run that Buster Keaton had in and I think this is my favorite movie of his that I've seen. Because just on a pure, on a gag-to-gag, stunt-to-stunt level, it's probably, the greatest example of that vernacular of filmmaking at that point. I think, we're going to get to Keaton versus Chaplin, because we got Modern Times queued up for the next match. But on a technical stunt, gag-for-gag comparison, I think Keaton wins out. But there's one thorn, there's this one thing about Keaton, and this happens here, and it happens in the general. I don't give a rat's ass about the romantic subplot. To
be fair, I don't give a rat's ass about almost anything in the movie besides the jokes.
Well, there isn't a whole lot in this movie besides stunts and the metafilm gags.
If you ask me what are the themes of this film, I guess dreams and I guess cinema, but I don't think that's even what he was trying for. I think he just saw that the conceit of a film projectionist dreaming himself into a movie was a wonderful way to get a bunch of gags in.
It feels like just a collection of gags, and you could even say, oh, isn't work boring? Listen, work sucks. But Charlie Chaplin made one of the greatest work sucks movies of all time, and we'll talk about it in a second. So we can't really give him the advantage on that. But the last half hour of this movie might be one of my favorite half hours of film straight up of all.
It's incredible. The things he does, the gags all work. There's not a single joke that I'm not happy with. I love every joke in this movie, essentially. And there's a sequence I totally forgot about until reading the plot synopsis as you're talking just now with the exploding billiard ball. So there's like
It's great.
there's this gag where there's supposed to be this billiard ball that if it gets hit, it'll explode, and it's the two villains of the piece are trying to explode Sherlock Jr. with this billiard ball. And he plays an entire game of billiards doing these crazy trick shots constantly, like it should be hitting the ball, but it never does. It never moves. And then the denouement of that, the way it finishes, is also so wonderful.
How does that... God, I just watched it. How does that end?
He switches out the 13 ball and he finally hits it and you think it's going to explode and it doesn't.
Right.
He
Sleight of hand.
sets up what the punchline should be and that doesn't come, and then the punchline comes later, and it's so good.
Just...
Him almost sitting on that chair and getting decapitated multiple times.
Yeah, and...
The fact that the car he's driving at one point has like 4-wheel brakes, and then he brakes and the wheels all stop and the bottom of the car stops, but the frame of the car keeps flying into a lake.
Keeps going, sure. And just the shit with the train and like and the not the water fountain, but like the water, like the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
Where apparently you tell me he broke his fucking neck doing that in a very literal way.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, he almost paralyzed himself doing that bit. And still, like we talked about, he still finishes the gag. Like he gets up and finishes the bit.
He literally got up and walked away from breaking his neck.
Yes.
Which is horrifying to think about, but also kind of admirable. He almost gets hit by a train. He spends like a good 5 minutes just riding on the front of a motorcycle, not realizing that the rest of the motorcycle isn't there.
Mm-hmm. He does that amazing jump through, looks like someone's body. He just jumps through it.
Yeah.
I don't know how he even did that.
It's seamless.
It's completely seamless. Like, even like we talked about, I keep saying we talked about, I'm going to stop saying that so people don't think about this great episode we didn't have. It was an average episode at best. But one thing we did talk about was the match cuts. When he first enters the screen of the movie, there's a bunch of editing match cuts on the screen that are so perfect that I don't even know how you do that.
It's just it's expertise. It's all it is. You could draw a line from like Méliès because as far as like trick editing and like Méliès didn't get it right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even when I watch Méliès films, I can see the choppiness a little bit.
You can see
I'm sure at that point in time I wouldn't have noticed because it was brand new, but the fact that I'm a pretty well-educated audience, I can see where the cuts are and where, like, oh, he had the person stand still and then he moves and stuff behind it. Whereas in this one, it's so seamless that it'd be hard to do it now. Like, if you were going to do it now, someone would just do computer compositing because it'd be so much fucking easier.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably exactly what we think it is. It's probably cut, but like cut like before he's jumping. As he's jumping, they get that part of the wall removed, and they put the wall back. But even if it's that's really amazing that it's still seamless.
Yeah, and because there's a continuity of motion that continues through the fact that through these cuts, there's somehow the precise motion continuing through all of them, which also speaks to Keaton must have been such a consistent performer that they were able to get these exact motions every single time.
I mean, this movie was like expensive for the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you could probably afford 5, 6, 7, 8 takes of something if it's very meticulous like that. But on the screen, and I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier, on the screen, this last half hour of film is just wall-to-wall amazing stunt work and everything.
Yeah, it's
like, I think it's the perfect Buster Keaton primer.
If I was going to show anyone, like, hey, like, what does silent comedy look like? I'd show them this.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's actually magical. Which is like such a cliche thing to say. Movie magic is such a cliche thing, but this is an actually magical thing.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about, we did Cinema Paradiso in one of the last episodes, and that's a movie magic movie that you did not care for.
I did not know.
And yeah, this kind of takes it a bit differently because it's not nostalgic for anything. This is like, I feel like...
This was probably cutting edge at the time.
Yeah, this is like, this is going to the movies. This is like my job influencing my dreams. This is the culture influencing the way I sort of exist. And not just kind of... And I guess we'll get to this a little later when we talk about Chaplin, but there's not a lot of romance in this film in a figurative sense as well. It's very technical.
Yeah, this isn't an exact comparison, but it's kind of the... I just realized as I was going to make this comparison, this is the most niche fucking comparison, but I'm going to do it anyways. This is the Behold the Arctopus to Chaplin's Weakling, if we're looking at metal bands. Like, Behold the Arctopus is so technically precise and perfect and incredible that it's like watching... it's watching a high wire act the entire time.
Yeah, because there's clearly several places where Buster Keaton could have just got killed.
Yes.
How about this? I'll try a niche comparison of my own.
Okay.
It's like Buster Keaton is kind of a 90s Chris Jericho.
I fucking knew it was going to be wrestling. God damn it, Derek.
To Charlie Chaplin's The Rock.
Okay. I understood those people. I know who those people are. So I'm happy for that comparison.
So how are we doing for time for Sherlock Jr.?
We have 2 minutes and 16 seconds left. Unless you just want to talk about wrestling more.
Oh, I mean, I could talk about wrestling a little bit. I mean,
sure, go for it.
I recently saw... I didn't get the chance to watch... What was the last pay-per-view? I think it was Survivor Series. I watched the NXT takeover show before that, and I saw for the first time with my own two eyes the Velveteen Dream wrestle. And who is the Velveteen Dream, you may ask?
I'm asking that right now.
Well, he is a wrestler whose gimmick is Prince. He's Prince, but a wrestler.
I'm looking up images, and I have to agree with you there.
And here's the thing: he's phenomenal. Like, he's really, really, really good. And that was Derek. And that was Derek's wrestling corner.
I'll say here's the 3 things I know about contemporary wrestling.
Sure.
So number 1 is that Shinsuke Nakamura is fucking rules.
Nakamura. He is an excellent wrestler. Strong style, baby.
Asuka also rules.
Also great.
And Becky Lynch covered in blood is awesome.
Sometimes there's a botch in the ring where something goes just an inch one way or the other, and instead of kind of hitting someone in a theater way, you actually break their fucking nose. And then but sometimes that's what makes you a legend, and I think that's that's going to be part of the Becky Lynch myth. It happened to John Cena a couple years ago where he took a knee to the face by accident.
It also happened to the Insane Clown Posse. I believe it was Violent J of the Insane Clown Posse when they were wrestling with I want to say it was WWF. That sounds right-ish.
Maybe it was either them or WCW.
Yeah, it was one of those two. Where they were having a whole gimmick where there was like a car involved, like a van, and he slid off the van and like cracked his face open, like on the ground. Oh, no. Which is why, if you ever read Shaggy 2 Dope's autobiography, you'll...
And why wouldn't you? Really?
Why wouldn't you? You'll realize he doesn't talk about his wrestling career very much because it's widely known that there's a what do you call it? They had a... What's that legal thing where you agree not to talk about it?
A non-disclosure agreement?
Yes, a non-disclosure agreement about what happened there. But none of that's going into the episode. So, Derek, let's talk about which of these movies is going to win.
Oh, man. Three Idiots kind of baffled me. It kind of threw me for a loop because, on the one hand, I didn't know what to expect, and I certainly didn't expect what I got. So, I'm still kind of processing that. Whereas Sherlock Holmes, not Sherlock Holmes, but Sherlock Jr. is... like I said, I think it's probably my favorite Keaton joint of his like classic run. Just the stunts and the gags, and it's Pantheon level. So Sherlock Jr. it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. I think Sherlock Jr. is the better film. I think that Sherlock Jr. is an all-time classic, is worth every accolade it's gotten. It deserves, but Three Idiots is Three Idiots. It's a fucking weird movie. I loved watching it. I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to buy it on DVD and watch it multiple times. I'm just going to enjoy myself with it. And I'm using the first ever veto on Middlebrow Madness to move Three Idiots ahead of Sherlock Jr.
Oh my God. Okay. I mean...
And that's why we have the vetoes. I wasn't sure when we did the first couple episodes. I wasn't sure I was ever going to use one. I felt like we would just have a smooth sailing the whole time. But I'm disagreeing with my own Letterboxd right now and saying that I want Three Idiots to move ahead of the best Buster Keaton film of all time.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think Three Idiots is a bad movie. Like I could see why it gets into the top 100, even why it slots into like the 91st seed. I'm just. Like, I don't think it makes it past round 2. Because it's got to go up against one of these movies that we're going to talk about now.
I mean, I'll have a whole new set of vetoes in round 2, won't I?
Oh, man.
I probably won't do that. I probably won't use a veto twice for the same movie. But you never know. I don't want to make any promises until we get there.
I mean, Jurassic Park Vertigo is still in round 1.
Fuck.
So don't count your chickens before they hatch. Three Idiots, actually the favorite in this matchup, moves on.
Yeah, so...
defeating Sherlock Jr.
Next up is... I think the hardest matchup that we've done so far.
This is several kinds of unfair. So here we go. Modern Times is the favorite, 38 seed in the tournament. This is like as far as favorites go. I think this is like a favorite for the crown. Directed by Charlie Chaplin, in the National Film Registry as well. And if we're using adjusted figures in 2018 dollars, $27 million box office on a $29 million budget. So not a flop, but it did quite make its money back.
Yeah. I got distracted because I was looking at the National Film Registry. And do you know what the most recent film that's in the National Film Registry is? Here's a hint. It's by one of my favorite experimental directors.
See, I think when you say experimental and what I think experimental is two different things.
Okay.
So I'm going to go and say, I don't want to expose myself as a dunce. I'm going to go with Satan Tango.
No, actually. Oh, it's just American movies, isn't it?
Is it just American movies?
Pretty sure it's just American movies.
Okay, so let me redo my thing. Is it the act of seeing with one's own eyes?
No, that wasn't made in like the 70s.
Oh, well, I thought you meant something that just recently had gone in.
No, I mean the most recent movie, like in terms of year of release.
Oh, man. Sunspring?
No, that would be wonderful. But
Whoa.
It's 13 Lakes by James Benning.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that. That's awesome.
Not either. It went in 2014, 10 years after it was made. So good job, James Benning.
How about that?
It's a wonderful film. But it's not part of the IMDb Top 250, and it's not Modern Times and the Maltese Falcon. For one, it's not black and white, it's in color.
Yes. So I did the tail of the tape for Modern Times now. Maltese Falcon, the 219th seed in our little tournament, written and directed by John Huston, based on the book of the same name by Dashiell Hammett. Went 0 for 3 at the Academy Awards. Was nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Sidney Greenstreet, and Best Adapted Screenplay for John Huston. Ah, man, I don't even know where to start with this because these are two bona fide masterpieces.
Yeah, I think I called them before capital M movies. Like, these are movies. Not just, like, when you think of movies, these are two of the movies that you inevitably come to mind so early on. They're just defined the art form.
When the people who are cutting commercials for Turner Classic Movies, these are two of the movies that they use.
Yes. And for once, they deserve it. They both are fucking incredible.
So, Modern Times, I saw on Letterboxd, I forget who wrote it, said that it was one of the greatest movie about unemployment ever made, and I don't find a whole lot of reason to disagree.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most prescient films ever, too. The way that it discusses... It's a comedy, but it also discusses unemployment, it discusses poverty, what do you call it? Disillusionment, alienation from one's work, the way that industrialization depersonalizes the worker, the
police brutality,
the way that communists are persecuted. There's the communist march early on where he accidentally becomes the leader of and gets thrown into jail just for being communist.
Yeah, it's like it's a great gag of a wide load flag or something falls off a truck that has a load that goes past the bed, and he picks it up and he's like, hey, you forgot your flag, and up comes a giant striking march behind him. It's great.
Yeah, wonderful. And it's a movie built out of, whereas Buster Keaton is just the gags, this is a movie with both incredible gags and a wonderful spirit and care for humanity.
Yeah, I mean, if Keaton is the brain, Chaplin's the heart.
Certainly.
I mean, clearly. And this is helped in part, or like a lot, by the fact that Paulette Goddard's character is like an actual character with motivations and, presence and like her own arc, because a lot of these sort of silent comedies have love interest, but a lot of the times they feel kind of they feel underdeveloped. They're like there kind of because there has to be one there, but Paulette Goddard brings such personality, charisma to this role that, I mean, that's the difference maker in when we're talking Keaton versus Chaplin. That's the difference maker. It's the character. The tramp is a character, as you'd say.
Yeah. There's even going to like other Chaplin movies, like you remember who the girl who works in the flower shop is in City Lights. For you remember other people in Chaplin films, whereas in Buster Keaton films, for better and for worse, I don't remember anybody but Buster Keaton. It's the Buster Keaton. He might as well be the only person in those movies.
And even his characters are barely characters.
Yes, like he doesn't have his own tramp character. He's just Buster Keaton.
He's got the face. That's the trademark. But his trademark is the stunts. There's not a politics or necessarily a humanity to the Buster Keaton characters. They're there as basically meat bags, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. I mean, those, like I said before, some of the greatest stunts ever committed to film. but Chaplin is the total package.
Certainly. And Modern Times is, I still prefer The Great Dictator because I'm a normie, but
it's a good ass movie though. Another masterpiece.
And I think we watch it later on in this bracket thing, but Modern Times is certainly really close up there.
Oh shit. You want here's a teaser for the people listening. Further up in the bracket, very further up in the bracket. Tune in for the episode where we're going to do The Great Dictator versus Mad Max Fury Road.
That's two movies that I like a whole bunch, Derek.
Hell yeah.
But you know what other movie's really good?
What other movie's really good?
Do you know it?
What other movie's really
good? A movie called The Maltese Falcon.
Oh, God damn it, you're right. Blast, you're right. Both of these movies are awesome.
I didn't want to move on. Is there anything else you want to say about Modern Times before we move on to the defining the defining noir, the original noirs? The
OG noirs. Modern Times is, beyond just being one of the great movies about unemployment, it's one of the great movies, as I said before, about how much work sucks. There's a great acting choice in this where Chaplin as the tramp basically has to tighten widgets just with like a couple of wrenches, and then just keeps tightening everything, even though he's not working. Like, he's got almost like a tick. He's like compelled to be productive. He's compelled, like you can't leave work, basically. It's like you're always there.
It's a specter of neoliberalism. It's a
specter of neoliberalism, exactly.
It's the individual being completely atomized and subsumed by the market. It being like, that is how all your interactions take place. That is what you are, is a figure in the market, and anything else should be discarded. Anything else is not important. Instead, you are someone who literally leaves work, thinking about work, doing work. Everything is work constantly. Even like relationships between people are work. Even sleeping is work. Dreaming is work. Having fun is work. And it's
eating lunch is work,
all
because
labor.
That's one of it's all labor. But also the lunch machine,
yes.
Like, that's just good. But also, yeah, this is a slapstick movie about neoliberalism. How fucked up is that?
Obviously, it wasn't called that at the time. Neoliberalism is rather newish phrase, but you can see the seeds of that kind of critique and that kind of outlook really being shown here.
And then he goes on to do Great Dictator. So this is like, Chaplin the political figure.
Chaplin is the original Antifa. So
Maltese Falcon
is also a really fucking good movie. Filled with a bunch of assholes doing asshole things in the coolest way possible.
It's so cool. This movie has two of my favorite asshole character actors from the golden era of Hollywood. So you got Peter Lorre, who's just great. He does the Peter Lorre thing, and that's all you really need in this world, is just Peter Lorre roasting dudes angrily. He's a master at it. And the other one is Alicia Cook Jr., who always looks like he's about, like, you can't tell from his face whether he's about to break down crying or about to just garrote you.
Yeah, there's a great scene. I think his first scene in the movie is he's in a hotel lobby, basically tracking Humphrey Bogart's character.
Sure.
And Humphrey Bogart's just like laying into him, being like, you're an amateur, basically. And he looks like he's, like you're saying, he's either about to start crying because he's so hurt and insulted and so angry and frustrated that he's not the person he is trying to be. It's such a satisfying thing to watch. And later on in the movie, when he attempts to shoot Sam Spade, is or the look on his face when what's his name sells him out.
The fat dude.
Sidney Greenstreet? Yes.
I think it's Sidney Greenstreet. Yes,
as Casper Gutman.
Casper Gutman.
There's this also just wonderful scenes of acting.
Yeah, it's some of the coolest people to ever be caught on film acting, delivering some tasty purple dialogue from the pen of Dashiell Hammett, like probably the most purple of the classic hard-boiled dudes, and just. It's pleasurable. It's super pleasurable. Bogart's so fucking cool. He's delivering just these perfect morsels of noir. And
in a way that transcends cliche. It goes so far above that. It's performed so well and so expertly and so charismatically that it doesn't fall into the traps that a lot of movies do when you go back and revisit them. A lot of classic movies, if you go and revisit them, you're like, oh, okay, like I see what's going on here, but also I've heard this so many times in pop culture. Like, how impactful is it when Darth Vader says, "Luke, I am your father"? Now, really, like when you go back and watch it, it's satisfying, but it's not like it wasn't the same feeling as you would have gotten when you first saw it. Whereas Humphrey Bogart still works just as well.
Bogart was such a commanding screen presence that he has one of the most, he's probably one of the most parodied leading men of all time, going back to like cartoons and like radio shit. And it's still awesome. And just the Bogart stuff alone runs the very real risk of wallowing in cliche. This, Casablanca, In a Lonely Place, African, just all his shit. And his manner of speech, his diction, his delivery, his screen presence is so iconic. And yet it's still, it doesn't feel stale at all. And we've been watching Humphrey Bogart films for like 80 years.
Yeah, and the best scene in the movie, in my opinion, is when it's just him and Peter Lorre the first time they meet in the office, just going back and forth, and Bogart knocks out Lorre, and then Lorre wakes back up, and Bogart like gives him back his gun and like to like leave, essentially saying like, "Hey, get out of here!" And he tries to stick him up again for this exact same way he was doing previously. And
then the scene ends.
Yeah.
He like chuckles and the scene ends. It fades to black and then we just go on to the next thing. Because that's how noir movies work. It's like just stuff happens.
It's the thing
people
that
talk,
people like about
happens.
Noir, I think a lot of times, where it's these two scumbags who both almost respect each other because they know the other person's a scumbag too.
Right. And there's no shortage of scumbags in this movie.
Yeah, it's a movie filled with them. There's no good people in here, and I think that's one of the reasons that it actually works. I think there's a lot of ways to end this movie that aren't the ending we have here that could have failed it. But instead we get an ending where we don't really know the answer to the mystery. Everyone's kind of disappointed. No one gets what they want. And it's satisfying.
Does anyone ever really get to the bottom of anything in a noir film, though?
I think you could make this movie where, secretly he stashed the real Maltese Falcon somewhere else, and this was a copy that he made, or something like that. I could imagine that movie, and the first time I saw this when I was younger, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Right.
But instead, nope, it's a fake, and the real one maybe exists somewhere. Also, it's Templar treasure, which I forgot. It's like literally like treasure from the Knights Templar. So it's Dan Brown can credit this for his career. And Umberto Eco for the pretentiousness, but
Umberto Eco. I've written a lot about Umberto Eco for a guy who hasn't read a lot of them.
Have you read Foucault's Pendulum?
I've not. I saw it there. I had like a sliding doors moment while I was working at a thrift store where I saw a copy of Foucault's Pendulum on the shelves and did not buy it. I could never find it.
So you got to read it. It is the smartest dumb book I've ever read. I love it.
I will say this, and this is classic, dunce who prefers movie stuff, but In the Name of the Rose fucking rules.
It does.
That's a good ass fucking movie. And but now I gotta fucking think about which of these two movies to move on, because they're both masterpieces. I don't know.
Yes. I mean, I guess I'll start.
This is so tough, Michelle.
Sorry?
This is so tough. Here's the thing. We've already lost an episode where I've already made my mind up. I'm still not sure that was the right call.
Well, you'll have a chance to change it this time if you want to. Because I'm sticking with what I said last time. I'm sticking with Modern Times. I'm going to keep it here. I think it's both one of the best silent comedies ever made, one of the best Charlie Chaplin films ever made, and a really wonderful statement about work and capital. And I think The Maltese Falcon is fucking cool as hell, and maybe the coolest film in like a very classic sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a lot more than that. Not that every movie has to be this epic thing about capitalism, obviously, but it does make it easier for me to discount it than it is for me to discount Modern Times.
Goddamn.
I mean, if you think that capitalism shouldn't ever be criticized, then you'll just go with Maltese Falcon. See, that's how I'm going to win all these. I'm just going to set up terrible false dichotomies like that.
Well, here's the thing. Everyone's chasing this proverbial bag of money in the shape of a bird. So, capitalism comes out looking bad in most movies if you cast it in.
Fair, yes.
But I think I'm going to go with what I said. I think Maltese Falcon is, both of these are like top 100 movies for me, by the way. These are both Pantheon. Maltese Falcon is definitely like top 3 noir. It's one of the great OG noirs and just straight up one of the best films of the 40s. But I think Modern Times has like a real legitimate one of the best movies. So I'm going to agree with you and make Modern Times.
Okay, so
you heard it here first, folks. Next time, or in round 2, when we get to this level of the bracket, you will see 3 Idiots versus Modern Time.
What a matchup! What a season! What a season!
Oh, God. What have we done, Michelle? This is so weird.
So for the next episode, when people are finally recovered from this one, what is it going to be? What movies are we watching?
We're going to be doing two more matchups. They are The Hunt versus The General. So we get to contend with so we still have a shot at Keaton v. Chaplin.
I think that's
in
the
round 3.
widest time span of any single matchup we have in this whole bracket. That's like what, 1926 versus 2012?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's, unless there's something else that I'm not thinking of, that is pretty ridiculous.
No, I think The General is The General the oldest movie? No,
Sherlock Jr. is 24.
So, and the other matchup that we're going to be doing is Spirited Away, so our first Ghibli movie, and A Wednesday, which is a Bollywood thriller, crime thriller.
Yeah. What, another movie I hadn't heard of before we did this list.
Same. I had no idea this was a movie that existed before. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. If people want to get mad at me on Twitter about using my first veto on 3 Idiots, go ahead and at me at Space Jam Fan. How about you, Derek?
If you want to, for some reason, argue with me that Maltese Falcon isn't one of the great OG noirs of all time, I guess you could email. You could get in touch with me at Derek_G on Twitter. Or if you want to get jumped down both of our throats, you can actually just go to the pod's Twitter account, which is at middlebrowpod.
Sure is.
Or if Twitter is not your thing, you can go ahead and send us a sternly worded email at middlebrowmadness@gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right. I am looking at the waveforms scroll across my screen, so I can guarantee you that this has recorded.
Okay, well, don't count your chickens before we end this episode properly. Until next time.
All right.
I've been Michelle Arf.
I've been Derek Gade. Have movies, be jolly.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.